Hey, raise your hand if you're looking for a tight end. Me too. With age and everything, though. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's having a good rest of your week. Hopefully you had a good Halloween last night. I got to spend the night last night doing this. Yes, I dressed up as an inflatable T-Rex, and I chased my son down the street who was supposed to be a dinosaur trainer. Had a lot of fun with it, but now back to work. Back to some fantasy football, talking tight ends, the football kind here this week. And who should we trust this week? Now, typically, I go through every single matchup, and I break down every tight end on every team. But let's be realistic. Half the tight ends on most of the teams you've probably never heard of. So similar to last week, I put these guys in rankings. I did the top 12 tight ends here for week 9, and we're just going to discuss each one of them, trying to help you guys make a decision. It's a super thin position. There's not a whole lot of great options. These are the top 12 guys who I have ranked for week 9, and we'll discuss them and hopefully try to help you guys out that way. Let's get into this list. Number 1 tight end here for week 9 is going to be Travis Kelce. Once again, he's currently tight end number 2. However, he's having an amazing season this past week against the Denver Broncos. 6 catches, 79 yards, and another touchdown. That now gives him 4 touchdowns on the season. He's broken 100 yards 3 times this year so far, and he's one of the top targets of Patrick Mahomes in one of the best offenses in all of football. And he has a pretty decent matchup this week against the Cleveland Browns, who are on average giving up almost 13 points a game to opposing tight ends. Last week against the Steelers, only 5 catches for 56 yards, but the week before that to the Tampa Bay Bucks, 12 catches for 111 yards to their tight ends. This is definitely a team that struggles with tight ends at times, and Travis Kelce is an elite option. If you have him, he's my number 1 tight end here for week 9. In what could be his highest ranked week so far this season, number 2 this week, Jared Cook of the Oakland Raiders. Now, he's playing Thursday Night Football, which is notoriously not the best of offensive options, but he's still the clear-cut number 1 option in this receiving game for the Oakland Raiders. He's put up, on average, 14.5 points in PPR leagues. Currently tight end number 5 last week against the Colts. 4 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. That now gives him 3 touchdowns so far in the season. He's broken 100 yards twice, and now he gets the 14th ranked defense against opposing tight ends in the San Francisco 49ers, giving up on average 11 points per game. Listen, Jared Cook is like the sole, consistent option in this offense. He's going to be somebody that Derek Carr looks for early and often. He's going to be a consistent play for you, and his upside is huge going forward, being now that Amari Cooper is gone. He's somebody who's a solid play week in and week out, and I like him here for week 9. He's my number 2 fantasy tight end here. Number 3 is going to be Rob Gronkowski, and a lot of people are frustrated with Gronk right now. He hasn't really performed like he has in the past. He has 1 touchdown this year, and that was back in week 1. This past week against the Buffalo Bills, only 3 catches for 43 yards. Hasn't had more than 3 catches since week 5 in a game. This is not the typical Rob Gronkowski that we're used to seeing, and it is somewhat of a difficult matchup this week against the Packers, who are on average only giving up 8.9 points to opposing tight ends. They have yet to allow a touchdown to an opposing tight end, but it's Rob Gronkowski. If you have him, you used a high draft pick on him. You kind of have to roll with him. At any time, he can go up there and put up that huge 100-yard, 2-touchdown game and really carry your team for a week. I know he's been frustrated. Currently only the number 8 fantasy tight end, but with it being as thin as it is, the last thing you want to do is bench Rob Gronkowski for another option outside of these top 10 or 12 guys and have it totally backfire on your bench. He's still my number 3 tight end here for week 9. Being bold with number 4, I think I was pretty bold with number 2 and Jared Cook. So how about number 4 being O.J. Howard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week? And now that Fitzmagic is back, this is Fitzmagic's guy. We really don't have to worry about Cameron Brate anymore. The first 3 weeks of the season, when we saw Fitzmagic under center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, O.J. Howard averaged almost 15 fantasy points a game. He had 1 touchdown in those first 3 games, and he's been killing it as of late. Touchdowns in 2 of his last 3, double-digit fantasy points 3 games in a row, and now he gets the amazing matchup going up against the Carolina Panthers, who are the worst-ranked team against opposing tight ends, giving up, on average, almost 19 points a game. They've allowed a touchdown to an opposing tight end 3 straight weeks. This is going to be a great week, a great matchup for O.J. Howard, and I have him ranked number 4 for Week 9. Let's stay in that same game for number 5, And now we'll talk about Greg Olsen, a little bit bold also. Last week, 4 catches, 56 yards, but had a touchdown. That's 2 straight weeks with a touchdown, and he's slowly getting more and more involved in this offense. He does look healthier at times. Let's be real. This is still one of Cam Newton's top targets. They need to get him back to full speed, and he's getting that way week in and week out. And now he has another great matchup this week with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are on average giving up almost 17 points a game to opposing tight ends. They've allowed a touchdown to an opposing tight end 4 out of the 7 games that they've played. Last week against the Bengals, they basically shut out, CJ Who's Your Mama. However, the week before that, against the Browns, that was David Njoku's 52 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, Austin Hooper, 71 and a touchdown. The week before that, Trey Burton, 86 and a touchdown. You're starting to see a trend here. This is not an elite secondary. This is definitely somebody that the tight ends can accentuate their production and their value this week. I'm going Greg Olsen as number 5 fantasy tight end for week 9. Number 6 is going to be another big name disappointment so far for 2018, and I'm talking Jimmy Graham of the Green Bay Packers. Now, yes, he absolutely hurt a lot of you guys out there last week with his whole 1 for 21 stat line, and I get it. However, before last week's game, he had double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues 4 out of the last 5 games, and he was somebody who was trending upwards in this offense. Yes, last week was a bad game, but now he gets the 27th ranked defense against opposing tight ends in the New England Patriots, who have allowed over 100 yards and a touchdown to fantasy tight ends 2 out of the last 4 weeks. This is definitely a team that you can throw to the tight end against. And Jimmy Graham is somebody who needs to be involved more in this offense. It's still an Aaron Rodgers-led offense. If I have any concerns going forward, it's now that Geronimo Allison and Randall Cobb are getting healthier, and that takes away the target share from Jimmy Graham. He's still a huge red zone threat, and they're going to have to throw the ball against the New England Patriots this week. I'm looking for somewhat of a bounce-back game, a safe floor for Jimmy Graham. He's my number 6 tight end here for Week 9. Number 7 is going to be Jordan Reed, and yes, it's Week 9, and we're still talking about Jordan Reed. This has to be some type of a record. Like, the guy's never played this long in a season, right? I mean, there's no way. It's Week 9, and we're still talking Jordan Reed, who has also been a disappointment, and I get it. Last week, he had 7 catches. Great. The problem is he only had 38 yards with those 7 catches. But more than anything, the volume is there for Jordan Reed. He's one of these elite talents that's going to break out at some point. It is a super thin position. You don't want Jordan Reed on your bench when that big breakout game comes. And they're still dealing with a lot of injuries in Washington, and he's still one of their top targets. And they get a decent matchup against an Atlanta Falcons secondary who's been banged up. We love to start people against the Falcons, right? Against the tight ends, they're a little bit tougher. The 16th ranked defense, giving up on average 11 points per game. 3 weeks ago, week 6 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, gave up 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. They've given up double-digit fantasy points to opposing tight ends 4 out of 7 games. This is definitely a team that Jordan Reed could take advantage of if given the opportunity. And with the thinness in the position, I'm going to have him number 7 this week, and this is the week that I'm calling for a Jordan Reed touchdown. Number 8 is going to be George Kittle, and I'll be fully honest, he will be higher up this list if C.J. Beathard is actually playing under center. He's got multiple hand issues now, and he's having trouble gripping the ball. We may see Nick Mullins under center for the San Francisco 49ers, and if that's the case, Kittle loses a lot of value. If it comes out that C.J. Beathard is playing, Kittle will move up these ranks. Right now, he's probably one of the most consistent tight ends in all of football. Through 8 weeks, he's had double-digit fantasy points in 6 of those games, averaging over 13 points a game, and he's the number 4 fantasy tight end in PPR leagues. And then he gets a decent matchup this week against the Oakland Raiders on Thursday Night Football. They're giving up on average almost 14 points a game, including last week when the Indianapolis Colts absolutely torched them by their tight ends. 133 yards, 3 touchdowns on 10 receptions. All the guys, Mo Alley-Cox, Jack Doyle, and Eric Ebron all had touchdowns last week against the Raiders. This is definitely a team that struggles containing tight ends. I love George Kittle. However, if Beathard doesn't play, he loses a lot of value, and that's as of right now why I have him all the way down at number 8. If it comes out that C.J. Beathard is good to go and going to play, Kittle becomes a top 3 option for me here in Week 9. Number 9 is going to be Austin Hooper of the Atlanta Falcons, and he's somebody who's a very safe play. Coming off the bye week, a few people may have forgotten about Austin Hooper. but he's still the number 8th overall tight end in fantasy football in PPR leagues, averaging almost 11 points per game. And he's somebody who 2 out of the last 3 games he's played has had 9 catches in each game. So he is involved in this offense. And now they get the 15th ranked defense in the Washington Redskins, who will be improved now that they have HaHa Clinton Dix over there. However, Austin Hooper is somebody who is not going to require as much defensive attention as, say, the likes of a Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, maybe even a Mohamed Sanu. Austin Hooper is somebody who could have a sneaky good game going up against the Redskins defense, which is right now is giving up on average 11 points to fantasy tight ends. Last week, gave up only 25 yards, but a touchdown, giving up 3 touchdowns on the year to opposing tight ends. It's a decent matchup for Austin Hooper, but it's his volume that he sees week in and week out that makes him valuable. That's why right now I have him number 9 fantasy tight end here for week 9. Number 10 is going to be the Week 8 disappointment of David Njoku, and I'm not giving up all hope on David Njoku. This is somebody who had 4 straight weeks of double-digit fantasy points, 2 straight weeks with a touchdown, then came out Week 8 against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that gives up a lot of points to fantasy tight ends, and he puts up a big fat 0, did absolutely nothing. And then all the soap opera drama that is the Cleveland Browns happened this week. All the coaching changes that happened, I'm not giving up on David Njoku yet. Listen, I said it last week, and I'm going to stick by it. This guy has the potential to be a top 5 fantasy tight end rest of season. I still really like the upside of David Njoku, and he has a great matchup this week against the Kansas City Chiefs, who on average give up close to 15 points a game to opposing tight ends. They've allowed a touchdown to an opposing tight end the last 2 weeks straight, and we've talked about it before. You're going to have to throw the ball to stay in the game with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't care if it's garbage time points or points all throughout the game. They're going to have to throw the ball in Cleveland this week, and David Njoku is somebody who they need to keep involved in this offense, and I definitely like him here, week 9. He's my number 10 fantasy tight end this week. At number 11, we have one of the most consistent tight ends in all of fantasy football. It's Kyle Rudolph of the Minnesota Vikings. His ceiling just isn't all that high. Right now, averaging close to 9 points a game, hasn't had a touchdown since week 3, and only has 2 for the season. He's currently the 10th ranked tight end in fantasy football PPR leagues and has a decent matchup this week against the Detroit Lions. Right now, they're giving up close to 13 points a game to opposing tight ends and have allowed a touchdown to an opposing tight end 4 out of the last 7 games. This is definitely a team that Kyle Rudolph can take advantage of, and if they can shut down either Thielen or Diggs on the outside with Darius Slay, that could open up more opportunities across the middle and in the red zone for Kyle Rudolph. I like his touchdown upside this week, and that's why I have him as tight end 11. Number 12 is going to be somebody else who disappointed last week, and it's Trey Burton of the Chicago Bears. He only had 3 catches for 18 yards, 4 fantasy points in PPR leagues last week against the New York Jets. He's still the number 6 rated tight end in all fantasy football, scoring close to almost 12 points a game. But he has a tougher matchup this week. This is the Buffalo Bills defense that just limited Gronk to 43 yards receiving on 3 catches. This defense is much improved in Buffalo, and they deserve some credit. The reason that he's still ranked inside my top 12 is just for his possible usage and volume in this offense. If you take away last week's game, the week before that against New England Patriots, he had 9 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. He has 4 touchdowns on the year, 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games. He's somebody who's involved in this offense, and the volume could go his way. Therefore, he gets a slight bump in the rankings. I have him at number 12 this week for week 9. A couple honorable mentions. Maybe you guys are in some deeper leagues and everybody that I mentioned is already owned or gone. There are a couple other guys farther down the list, maybe available on waivers that could get you by this week if need be. Those 3 names, we got Ed Dickson of the Seattle Seahawks, who came out this past week, only had 2 catches for 54 yards but had a touchdown and seems to be somewhat involved in that offense that we also saw Will Dissly be valuable in. You have Chris Herndon of the New York Jets. With all the injuries to the outside receivers, Herndon is somebody who has huge touchdown upside every single week. And then Mark Andrews, rookie for the Baltimore Ravens. They have a great matchup this week, and he's starting to get a little bit more involved there also. All 3 of these guys, decent options if you're looking for somebody in a deeper league. All right, those are my top tight ends here for week 9. Hopefully that helps you guys make your decisions a little bit easier. If not, hit the comment section up. Lots of people here in this community to help each other out. Really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys are looking for the live show, end of the week. I still haven't nailed down the time yet. It's either going to be Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning. Real work is kind of getting in the way of that schedule as of right now. Really appreciate your support, though. Be looking out for that live show time. I will post it on YouTube. It'll show up in your feed when I actually schedule that live show, so make sure you're looking for it. Have the subscribe button checked and the notification bell checked. You don't want to miss it. We have a lot of fun on the live shows. Love interacting with you guys. So have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.